When a titan of Hollywood, a man synonymous with cinematic greatness, sits down for a routine interview, only to be ambushed by a host determined to ignite a personal war on live television. Prepare yourself, because you are about to witness one of the most volatile broadcast moments in modern history, where the legendary Al Pacino was pushed into a fiery exchange that culminated in him abandoning the set mid-air. But before we pull back the curtain on this shocking confrontation, be sure to join our community by hitting that subscribe button and weigh in below. What are your thoughts on celebrity interviews gone wrong? Believe me, this is a story you need to see to believe, because the drama that plays out is absolutely staggering. It was meant to be a standard promotional stop on The View for Al Pacino, the icon behind The Godfather, Scarface, and a lifetime of other masterpieces. He was there to discuss his newest film. Now in his 80s, the veteran actor was a figure defined by his fierce passion, but equally by his unwavering professionalism, having navigated thousands of interviews across a career spanning decades. He moved between profound cinematic discourse and light-hearted talk show banter with an effortless grace. But on this specific morning, the air in the studio was charged with something else, something different, from the second he stepped on stage. The typical pre-show pleasantries felt hollow, and a sharp undercurrent of tension, an invisible friction, put the seasoned actor on immediate alert. Joy Behar, co-host of The View, infamous for her biting wit and political jabs, had seemingly decided this interview would be anything but typical. Her agenda was clear from the very first volley. "So, Al," Joy began, leaning in with a smile that was more predatory than pleasant, "let's get to your new film. But before that, I have to ask about your past. Looking back, do you carry any regret for glorifying such violence in films like Scarface? I mean, shouldn't Hollywood bear some responsibility to our society?" Pacino, visibly blindsided by the aggressive opening salvo, took a beat. His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, a signal of coiled intensity that any fan of his work would instantly recognize. "Well, Joy, I think that's a rather heavily weighted question to lead with," he countered, his voice steady but laced with steel. "My belief has always been that cinema is an exploration of the human condition, its darkness included. We are storytellers, not moral guardians. But you must see how these portrayals affect young, impressionable minds," Joy shot back, completely steamrolling his articulate defense. "Think about how many kids wanted to be Tony Montana. Don't you feel even a sliver of accountability for that?" A wave of discomfort washed over the other hosts. Their uneasy glances said it all. This was not the interview anyone had signed up for, certainly not from the opening bell. Whoopi Goldberg tried to steer the conversation to safer waters, asking about his acting methods, but Joy sliced through her attempt. No, let the man answer," Joy insisted, dismissing her colleague with a flick of her hand. "This is important. Al, you've earned millions from these violent roles. Don't you believe you owe the public an explanation?" Pacino's jaw locked. "I owe the public nothing but an honest performance," he stated, his legendary intensity finally beginning to surface. "Every character I've inhabited, I've done so with absolute respect and dedication. If you wish to have a philosophical discussion on art and its societal impact, I am more than willing. But let's not pretend this is that." "And what do you mean by that?" Joy parried, her voice climbing in pitch. "I mean," Pacino replied, his tone now sharp and direct, "that you seem far more invested in manufacturing a conflict than in having a genuine conversation. I've been in this industry for over 50 years. I can distinguish between an interview and an inquisition." The tension in the studio was now a physical presence. Camera operators shifted uncertainly, and the other hosts looked as if they wished the floor would swallow them whole. But Joy Behar was only warming up. "Oh, so I'm interrogating you now?" She scoffed, a laugh devoid of any warmth. "I'm asking valid questions about your career. If you're too fragile to handle that, perhaps this business isn't for you anymore." A deafening silence fell over the studio, broken only by the low hum of the broadcast equipment. Al Pacino held Joy's gaze for a long, heavy moment, and in that silence, everyone knew the ground had just shifted. This was no longer just an awkward interview. This was about to become a defining moment. "Listen, lady," Pacino began, his voice low but resonating with the authority of his entire career. "I've been fielding questions about my work since before you ever had a job in television. But there is a vast chasm between asking a question and showing blatant disrespect." Joy's face flushed a deep crimson. "Disrespectful? For asking about the real-world impact of your films? That's my job, Al. Perhaps inside your insulated Hollywood bubble, you're only surrounded by people telling you how brilliant you are. But out here, in the real world, we ask the hard questions." "The real world?" Pacino's eyebrows arched in disbelief. "You believe sitting behind this table makes you more in touch with the real world than an artist who has spent 50 years chronicling real lives, real pain, and the real human experience? I think it makes me someone who isn't afraid to challenge Hollywood when it's necessary." Joy snapped back. "And frankly, I see a great deal that's problematic with the very films you've built your name on." The other hosts were now desperately trying to regain control, with Sarah Haynes jumping in to ask about his upcoming work. But Joy would not be deterred. "No, we are finishing this," Joy commanded, cutting Sarah off mid-question with a brutal gesture. "I am not finished. Al, you've been evading my questions." Pacino's expression hardened. "I have evaded nothing. I have answered every single question you've thrown at me. The issue is that my answers are not the ones you scripted in your head. Your answers are nothing but polished Hollywood spin," Joy fired back. "Let me be more direct. How do you sleep at night, knowing your romanticized portrayals of gangsters and criminals have likely inspired actual violence? How many lives have been lost because someone thought being Tony Montana was cool?" The accusation detonated in the studio, a toxic plume of insinuation. Even for a show known for its fiery debates, this was a shocking breach of conduct. Whoopi Goldberg looked utterly appalled, and in the control booth, producers were in a state of frantic panic. Pacino leaned back, his body coiled with tension. "That is not just unfair, Joy. That is profoundly irresponsible. You are, in essence, holding me accountable for acts of violence I have absolutely no connection to. That is not journalism. That's a public takedown of my reputation." "Oh, so now I'm tearing down your character?" Joy's laugh was a shard of ice. "I'm simply demanding you take responsibility for the shadow your work has cast. But I suppose that's an impossible ask for a man who spent decades sealed away in his ivory tower." "Ivory tower?" For the first time, Pacino's voice cracked like a whip, the first sign of that legendary temper. "Lady, I was raised in the Bronx. I've seen what real strife looks like, and it is nothing I treat as entertainment, or ever celebrate. Every soul I have ever portrayed faced a reckoning. Every story carried weight. If your eyes can't see that, then you have no grasp of what you're even discussing. Don't you dare stand there and lecture me about understanding," Joy retorted, her finger jabbing the air in his direction. "I've been on the front lines of real-world events while you've been playing make-believe for a paycheck. I know what real consequence is, too. And I know that films like yours feed into it." The other hosts were now in a frantic, silent scramble to regain control. Sonny Hostin made a desperate play, trying to pivot with a question about his craft, but Joy sliced through her attempt. "We are having a vital conversation here," Joy declared, her gaze locked on Pacino like a predator. "This is precisely the kind of reckoning that needs to happen with the Hollywood elite, who believe they are beyond reproach." "Beyond reproach?" Pacino's voice now held a low, dangerous hum. "I have faced scrutiny my entire career, and I have grown from it. But there is a universe of difference between honest critique and whatever this is. You walked onto this set with a verdict already decided, and you have no interest in a single word I have to say. My only verdict is holding powerful men accountable," Joy proclaimed, her words delivered not as conversation but as a courthouse speech, a practice that is clearly foreign in your world. My world? Pacino leaned forward, his body tensing, his knuckles white as he gripped the chair. You know nothing of my world. You know nothing of the years of grit, the absolute devotion to the art, the deep respect I hold for this craft and for the people who watch. You painted a picture of me before I even parted my lips. I painted it based on 50 years of your films, Joy fired back, her words like bullets. And the portrait I see is of a man who built a fortune by romanticizing everything that is fractured about masculinity in this nation. An absolute, chilling silence fell over the studio, broken only by the whisper-soft clicks of the cameras. The crew themselves were frozen, witnessing an on-air demolition of a living legend. Pacino just shook his head slowly, and when he finally spoke, his voice was a low growl, seething with a fury he barely restrained. You know, Joy, in all my time in this industry, I've encountered all kinds. The good, the bad, the ones just trying to get by. But I have seldom met anyone so utterly consumed with the need to dismantle another person for the sake of their own self-importance. My self-importance? A slight tremor entered Joy's voice, a crack in the facade, but she pushed onward. This has nothing to do with me. This is about accountability. A concept your generation seems to fundamentally misunderstand. My generation. A fire ignited in Pacino's eyes. My generation forged the very industry that provides you with this stage. We told the stories. We shouldered the risks. We cut the path for every single person who followed. And you have the audacity to lecture me about accountability? Yes, I do, Joy stated, her chin held high in defiance. Because it's necessary. Someone has to pose the challenging questions that every other Hollywood journalist is too starstruck to even formulate. Challenging questions? Pacino let out a laugh, but it was a cold, empty sound, devoid of any humor. You believe an ambush, filled with wild, baseless claims that I am somehow responsible for the world's ills, is a challenging question? That isn't journalism, Joy. That's just cruelty for sport. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried to throw a lifeline, attempting one more time to interject with a comment about his charity work, but Joy was a storm that could not be redirected. Don't you dare change the subject, she snapped at her co-host, her focus immediately snapping back to Pacino. We are discussing the cultural footprint of violent media, and I demand to know why Al Pacino believes he's exempt from that conversation. I don't want to be exempt, Pacino said, his volume rising once more. I want an honest dialogue. But that is obviously the last thing you want. You've already convicted me in your mind for who I am and what I symbolize, and no truth I offer will ever penetrate that judgment. Perhaps that's because what you symbolize is the rot at the core of Hollywood. Joy pressed on with her attack. The old guard, the glorification of aggression, the toxic masculinity, all of it gift-wrapped in golden statues and applause. Pacino held her gaze for a long, heavy moment, and the entire studio audience could feel a decision solidifying within him. His expression had morphed from rage into something else entirely. It was a look that bordered on pity. You know, Joy, he began at last, his voice now unnervingly serene. I came here today to discuss my work, to share a piece of it with the audience, perhaps even to enjoy myself. I've sat for thousands of interviews, and in every single one, I have maintained my respect, even when the questions were sharp. But this isn't an interview anymore. This is the sound of a powerful man being challenged and not liking it. Joy retorted with a smug curve of her lips, certain she had cornered him and claimed her victory. This is a perfect example of the entitled attitude I've been describing. Pacino's face then settled into an expression none of the hosts had ever witnessed. It was the look of a man who had not just been angered, but fundamentally broken, not by rage, but by a deep and profound sense of disappointment. Entitled, he repeated, the word tasting like poison in his mouth. Joy, I need you to listen to me. and listen closely. I have poured my entire existence into this craft. I have dissected every character. I have breathed their air. I have delivered truth in every single role I have ever inhabited. I have never once asked for preferential treatment. Never once demanded easy questions. Never shied away from difficult conversations. But what you are doing, right at this moment, is not journalism. It is a public harassment. Harassment? Joy scoffed, incredulous. For asking about your movies? Oh, please, Al. This is the very definition of Hollywood privilege. The second you face a real question, you cry foul. Harassment. A real question. Pacino's voice dropped lower, and with it, the intensity in the room skyrocketed. Let me educate you on what a real question sounds like. You could have asked about my methods, about the moral tightrope of portraying difficult men, about the responsibility I feel as an artist, about my own evolution through the decades. Instead, you chose a personal crusade, to pin society's demons on my chest, for reasons that have nothing to do with me. The hosts shot panicked glances at one another. Whoopi Goldberg made one final, valiant attempt to steer the ship from the rocks. Al, perhaps we could shift to your new project, she offered, her voice full of hope. But Joy cut her down without a second thought. No, we are not changing the subject. I want an answer from Al. Do you, or do you not, believe your films, steeped in conflict, have left a negative mark on our culture? Pacino slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they held nothing but a deep, resigned sorrow. Are you certain you want the answer to that question? He challenged. Yes, I am, Joy declared, a triumphant glint in her eye. Then here it is. I believe that true art, real art, is a mirror held up to society, and sometimes that mirror reflects images we would rather not confront. The men I have portrayed, they are not heroes, he explained, his voice low and deliberate. They are cautionary tales. Tony Montana does not find happiness, Joy. He finds his end, alone, and in ruin. Michael Corleone does not discover peace. He discovers only a profound, soul-crushing emptiness. Those are not glamorous conclusions. They are tragedies, he stated. But Joy cut him off. But people don't perceive them that way, she interjected. Some people don't, Pacino conceded, his patience thinning. But that is not a failing of the art. That is a failing of those who actively choose to ignore the message. Should we cease telling stories about difficult realities because a few might misinterpret them? Should our only films be about puppies and rainbows? Don't be absurd, Joy shot back. I am not the one being absurd. Joy, you are. You are demanding I accept responsibility for how strangers decide to interpret my work. That is akin to blaming Shakespeare for every dark deed committed by someone who read Macbeth. The color was rising in Joy's face, a crimson tide of fury. Do not dare compare yourself to Shakespeare. That is precisely the kind of arrogance I am referring to. I am not comparing myself to Shakespeare, Pacino countered, his patience now a brittle facade. I am making a point about artistic responsibility. But you have no interest in understanding that point. Your only goal is to attack. I want honesty, Joy proclaimed. Something that seems to be in desperately short supply from Hollywood these days. Honesty? The steel in Pacino's voice returned, sharper than before. You want honesty? I will give you honesty, Joy. This is, without question, the most unprofessional interview I have ever endured. I have been shown more courtesy by paparazzi hiding in bushes than I have by you in this studio today. Oh, boo-hoo, Joy scoffed, the mockery dripping from her words. The great movie star isn't being treated like royalty. Welcome to the real world, Al. And that was the moment. The precise instant everyone in that studio knew a line had been irrevocably crossed. Pacino rose slowly from his chair, a deliberate movement that seemed to vacuum all the oxygen from the room. You know what, Joy? He said, his voice now a blade of pure, chilling calm. "I have been in this industry for over 50 years. I have collaborated with the greatest directors, the most iconic actors, the most brilliant writers across multiple generations. I have faced criticism from people who possess actual knowledge of the craft, and I have learned from every single one of them. But I have never, and I mean never, been subjected to such profound disrespect by someone who dares to call herself a professional." "If you can't handle the heat," Joy began, but Pacino raised a hand, silencing her. "No, you are finished speaking. I listened to you. Now, you will listen to me. I came here as an invited guest on your program. I arrived with respect for this show and for the audience that tunes in. I came prepared to engage in a genuine conversation about my work, my life, and my experiences. Instead, you chose to use me as a public target for whatever unresolved grievances you harbor against the entertainment industry." The studio was a tomb of silence. Even Joy appeared momentarily paralyzed by the controlled fire in his voice. "I don't know what transpired in your life to fill you with such bitterness," Pacino continued, his tone clinical, "and frankly, it is of no concern to me. But I will not sit here and allow you to project it onto me. I have been nothing but professional, and you have been nothing but hostile. And I am done with it." Joy, scrambling, finally found her voice. "So you're just going to run away? Just like every other Hollywood prima donna who can't take a little criticism?" At that, Pacino actually smiled, but it was a cold, razor-thin smile devoid of any warmth. "Criticism? Is that what you call this, Joy? I've been critiqued by the sharpest, most gifted minds in the world, and I've cherished it because it forced me to be better. But this is not criticism. This is merely cruelty, and life is far too short to waste a single moment on cruel people." He began unclipping his microphone, and a wave of panic washed over the production crew. "Al, please," Whoopi Goldberg pleaded. "Don't leave. We can reset." Pacino turned to Whoopi, his expression softening with genuine affection. "Whoopi, you are a class act, you always have been. But I cannot continue this. I will not continue this." Joy, perhaps sensing the monumental scale of her miscalculation, made one final, desperate bid for control. "Fine. Go on, leave. Show the world what you're really made of." Pacino paused, mic in hand, and locked his eyes on Joy one last time. "You want to know what I'm made of? I'm made of 50 years of relentless work, unwavering dedication, and profound respect for my craft and my colleagues. I'm made of thousands of hours of study, of preparation, and of pouring every ounce of myself into every role. I'm made of a genuine love for the art of storytelling and for the people who watch our films. And I am made of enough self-respect to know when to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve another second of my time." With that, he placed his microphone into the hands of a stunned production assistant and turned toward the exit. "This is live television, Al." Joy's voice was a desperate cry into the void. "You can't just walk out." Pacino stopped at the very edge of the set, turning back for a final, piercing glance. "Watch me." And with those two words, one of the most revered actors in Hollywood history walked off the set of The View, leaving in his wake a shell-shocked studio audience, mortified co-hosts, and one furiously red-faced Joy Behar, who had just learned the hard way what happens when you push a legend to their breaking point. The cameras continued to roll, capturing the hosts as they scrambled to fill the gaping void, but no words could erase what the world had just witnessed. It was a masterclass in maintaining dignity under fire, and a stark reminder that respect is a courtesy to be given, not a tribute to be demanded. What is your verdict on this incredible confrontation? Have you ever witnessed a celebrity interview detonate so spectacularly? Drop your judgment in the comments below and let me know. And be sure to subscribe for more unbelievable true stories like this one.